Getting ready to do those brakes now. I've got it blocked up. I've got all four wheels off. I pulled the brake drums off of the rear. They actually look pretty good. I'm not going to turn them. I'm just going to scuff them with some sandpaper. I measure this diameter and it's just right at the maximum limit, so I'll be okay. I'm going to replace the wheel cylinders and the shoes and this rubber brake line right here. I've got new brake hose, shoes, rear wheel cylinder, front caliper, and front brake hose. We'll be replacing those things. I measured the thickness of the disc. It's about 1.5 millimeters larger than the minimum allowed, so I'm good there. I'll just clean this surface rust off real good. And I'm not going to replace the pads because there's about 3/8 of an inch thick there. I've got a lot of life left in those. I will repack the wheel bearings. I'm getting ready to replace the brake master cylinder now. I've got a brand new one here. And it's an easy installation. You've got a couple of studs coming through here. You take these nuts off, and you've got 2 hydraulic lines coming out of here, a front and a back. So you put those in, and basically that's it. Easier than the clutch master cylinder because you don't have a rod attached here that has to go inside and hook onto the pedal. You're just going to have a rod sticking out that's already attached to the pedal, and then it just goes right in this hole here. And then I've got to break these 2 hydraulic lines loose. I've already got most of the fluid drained out of this thing because I've got some of the brake lines loose down by the wheels. So the fluid has pretty much all drained out. Okay, now I'm going to clean up all this area here and blow some air down through these hydraulic lines. That'll flush them out, so I'll have, when I'm done with this system, all fresh fluid throughout. And before you tighten up these bolts here, these nuts, why, get these hydraulic lines at least started so you can wiggle it around. It'll be easier to get them lined up. Okay, that's all there is to it. Okay, I'll go get everything cleaned up and then we can put it back together. To get the pads out of the caliper, if you're going to be changing them, which I'm taking these pads out and I'm putting in my new calipers because these pads here still have a lot of life in them. There's 2 pins that go across here. There's a little hole right there that this clip came out of. And so you take those clips out, and then you can take a little punch and drive those pins out. Okay, that's all there is to it. And then the pads come out, and they've got these little shields that go on there. And you see a little arrow right there? That needs to go in the direction of rotation. So if the wheel's rotating this way, the brake rotor, that needs to go on your pad such that that's pointing in the direction of rotation. There's one on each pad. Here's the parts all cleaned up, ready to go back together now. The rotors, you know, have a little surface rust on them. I kind of hit them with some coarse sandpaper just to knock the big stuff off. But once it starts running, that'll clean up, no problem. First thing I got to do is pack the wheel bearings. I like to just take a big wad of that and then take the back side of the bearing. You got more space to force that grease in, just start going edge by edge. And then pretty soon you see it start oozing out the other side. So you're just going to go around, keep walking it around till you got stuff coming out all the way around. Okay, as soon as you're confident you got it well packed, kind of just put a little layer in here. There's no reason to pack a whole bunch of grease down in there. It's not going to do anything but stay there. You just need it on the bearings real good. And I'm going to drop that down in there. Now this seal will hammer in there, but before I do that, I'm going to pack this other one. Now I'll put the seal in there. Just put a little film of grease inside of it. It just drops right down in there. A little seal driver. Alright, that's all there is to that. I'll just put a little film around here. You want to shake it like this and have just a teeny tiny bit of play in it. Okay, that's pretty good right there. Because when these bearings get hot, why, they're going to expand. All of the metal parts will expand, and then it'll be just right if you've got a tiny bit of slop in there. Tiny bit of wiggle. Put this dust cap back on. Okay, the arrow goes to the front. So that goes just like that. One of these little dudes go on here. Just like that. Slides down in here. Pin goes through here, another pin goes through here. Put my little retaining clips in here. Keep these pins from sliding out. Okay, that looks good. Go ahead and start this little hydraulic line in here. I won't tighten it up all the way yet because I've got to make the connection on the other end. Oops, I just realized I didn't change the camera angle, but you didn't miss too much. The caliper just goes on with these two bolts in the back here, kind of in the reverse order that it came off. One bolt here, one bolt down here. I had to put this little steel hydraulic line on and this new hydraulic hose on. Tighten everything down, and this side's basically done. Now for the back. Here's what we're looking at. A few cobwebs in here. I'm going to start by taking this little retaining clip off here. There's a pin that comes through the back and kind of holds this shoe in place. There's one over here too. But I'll take this one off. I'll pull this shoe out from up here and let it come back this way. It'll give me a little relaxation on this spring here, and I can pop it loose. Then there's another spring back down here, you can't see it, but once I get this one off of here, I'll be able to separate that and pull all that out. Now I've got this little tool made specifically for this. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a pair of pliers. This makes it a little easier. Now I'm just going to try and pull this out there and see how that comes over. There's that spring. Go ahead and take this other side loose. That's all that is there. Okay, now we're ready to take the wheel cylinder off. And you're not going to be able to see much of this because I got to get in behind here and there's barely even any room to work. But I'll show you what it looks like when I get it off. Okay, there it is. And this is a little two-piece part here. This attaches to a clevis on the back there, which has a cable that goes up to the parking brake. So when you pull on that lever, it pulls this and actuates the parking brake. The way this is attached to here, got these two clips. One comes from one side, one comes in from the other side. And this one's got a couple of little protrusions there. This one has a couple of holes in it. So when they come together like this, why those holes and those protrusions get locked together. And this is a spring on this side, so it puts a little pressure and keeps the wheel cylinder snug against the backing plate. Now this is a big old slot over here, and that's by design. It allows this to slide back and forth as needed to keep the brake shoes centered in the brake drum. It's kind of an odd design, but that's what they had. So now I'll get, of course I got a new one of these, but I'll get all these other parts cleaned up and then see if I can get it all back together. Got everything cleaned up, ready to put it back together. On the drum here, I'm not having them turned or anything because the surface is very smooth. I'm just going to take a little sandpaper and go all the way around it real good. More than that, I'm just kind of showing you what I'm going to do just to knock the glaze off a little bit. I've got my new shoes. You can't really get those mixed up. This big square hole, this shoe will go on the back side because this little lever on your wheel cylinder pops right in there. It's about the only way you can put it together. This one here that goes on the front, you can't really get it upside down. It goes just like that because this hole where the retaining pin and spring comes through is only going to match up with this in one direction. If you put it upside down, the holes will be offset. This line here, got it cleaned up. It comes from the hose fitting up here down to the brake cylinder right here. Got a new rubber brake hose. It goes back here. I don't know if you can see this too good. There's a little tab right there it bolts onto, and then it'll bend around and come up in there. And then this fitting here attaches into it. Here's the wheel cylinder. It's got a new rubber boot on it. Pull that off. Little WD-40 in here will help that slide off easier. Okay. Okay, here's those little horseshoe clips I was showing you. One on each side. So basically we can pull this off all the way, because this has got to go in here like this. And it's going to be easier if you take the lever off and the boot off and get this in there, and then slide this one in from the front, and then slide this one in from the back. Now we got to work the rubber boot on there. Get the lever coming back in the, there's a little fork back there. The lever's got to come through that fork. There we go. And do this. Once you get this on here, you've got to pry it out just a little bit in order to get the lever to pop in behind it. It's kind of tricky, but it will go. There we go. Before I put the shoes on, I'm going to get this hose and this line on the back, because I don't want to have to take anything off of here if I have a problem back here. Bottom of the line's threaded into the wheel cylinder. And we've got these little horseshoe clips. One goes right there. Now we can go around and tighten up all of our fittings. First thing I'm going to do is hook this spring in here like that. Then I'm going to hang this shoe on here. Make sure they get saddles, that little lever coming out of there. Need to get one of our pins stuck in the back. This little washer goes on the back side. Then a spring. And one of these little retaining washers. Get my tool on here. Turn it 90 degrees. Okay, that's one on. And then I'm going to get this hooked in here, like that. Pull it out in there, put it right there. I'll go ahead and see if I can get this hooked on there. There we go. Then I can push this out here, just like that. Okay, then we can come in the back with our retaining pin. There we go. This washer, this spring, this guy. Get it lined up. It's pretty good. Make sure they're kind of even top to bottom. I'm looking at the gap around here. If it's not even, you can slide one shoe up or down. All right, now I'm ready to put the drum on there and adjust the brakes. If you look at the wheel cylinder here, you see this little gear, it meshes with the self-adjusting lever, which is under here. This cog here is where we're going to stick a screwdriver through the hole in the drum and adjust that, and adjust it on this outer part, not here. So we don't want to mess up these teeth. Out here is where we're going to adjust it. Here's our hole. I need a little flashlight to see where you're at. You start adjusting it up. Feel it. As soon as it gets a little bit snug, you don't want it tight, then you're just going to stop. Actually, that's pretty good right there. I think I'm going to leave them. I don't want to get them too tight. The brakes are all bled now. I had my wife come out and help me, and she would pump up the brakes and hold the pedal down. I would open up this bleeder valve and let the air out, and kept doing that until I had nothing but fluid coming out that ensured that all the air was out. Then I would lock this down, go over to the other wheels on the left, on the rear. This is the right rear. Then I would move to the right front and then the left front. You want to start with the furthest wheel away from the master cylinder and then work your way up. She would hold the brake down. I would open that valve, then close the valve. Then she could pump the brakes again, and I kept repeating the process. Here's the bleeder valve on the front calipers. And if your bleeder valves came with little rubber caps on them, be sure and put them back on. They'll just keep the dirt and dust and water and what have you out of them. So next time you go to bleed them, they won't be clogged up. And as you go through this process of bleeding the valves, be sure and periodically check your fluid level in your master cylinder, because it's going to be going down as you pump air and fluid out of the respective cylinders. And I've got a good brake pedal, nice hard brake pedal. So ready for a test drive.